Welcome to Messier Mantra. On this episode, we have a return guest, very special lady of Dina K Photography, Dina Konovalov. Did I say it right?
Yes, you did it again, Mike.
2 for 2?
All right.
I always, because someone can come in here with, my name is Tom Jones. Tom Jones, did I say that right? You know, that's my shtick.
Sure, it works for you.
But thank you. But Dina, last episode we had you on, we're talking about working with actors, headshots and all that. Mm-hmm. This episode we're going to open it up a little bit more. And you told me off camera that one of your other passions is what you call, what I like, fine art photography.
That's right.
How do you define that? For those that may not know, what's your definition of fine art photography when it comes to you and your work?
Fine art photography is something that I do to express myself without getting paid to do so.
Okay.
So I'm not a painter, I'm not a writer, I am none of those things. However, I love to use my camera and create some artwork with it. So that's what I try to squeeze in between all my jobs here and there.
Right.
So yeah.
What would some of your subject matters be?
It's interesting you ask. My husband would be laughing right now because he's seen my studio. I have an interesting collection of some creepy dolls.
Okay.
And so I try to tell stories with these interesting objects.
Yeah.
And so that's one of my projects, an ongoing project for many years now.
Nice.
So yeah, in fact, I think my fine art photography has nothing to do with real people.
Okay.
A lot of times.
Right.
I shouldn't say all the time, but a lot of times. So yeah, I look for things and objects that are interesting to me,
right,
that may be full of fear or history or something that intrigues me, and try to create a visual, interesting story with that.
Nice. So things that go bump in the night, perhaps.
Yeah.
So now these dolls, would they be like the old-fashioned baby dolls,
Oh, Mike, I have all kinds of dolls. Yeah, I have I should mention too that my studio is in this old mill building, and underneath there's a bunch of antique stores.
Okay.
So it's like,
wow.
For me, it's like a playground there.
Yeah.
So you'll find me constantly wandering around on the weekends looking for props for my personal projects there. So a lot of interesting, cool little things found in my studio.
The antique people must love you. I hope that you're getting some type of deal, either when you're buying or borrowing or whatever. I'm sure you've got that worked out by now.
Oh yeah, I got a lot of friends.
That's cool. That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's great. When setting up a photographer, see, I'm making a comparison here from a writer to a photographer. Mm-hmm. So a writer, there are writers who will just start typing away, stream of consciousness, whatever's coming out. Then there are writers who are a little more tactical. They might say, well, I'm going to write scene 1 of this story, and then scene 2, and then they write this whole outline, and then they go in and flesh it out later.
Right.
I'm curious if there are photographers who have those different types of modalities, the different styles. Are there photographers that will say, well, I'm going to go to the park, and the sun's setting at 5 o'clock, and I'm going to take the sun coming down, and I'm going to get my model friend to come wandering through the flowers at 5:02.
Yep.
And then maybe there's the other photographer type who's like, grabbing my camera, going to the park, see what happens.
Right.
Is it like that, or am I off base a little bit?
I think it's a little bit of both, and
Okay.
depending on the situation or the shoot, if there's models involved in other aspects, such as being able to go into certain locations and looking for certain lighting, then you definitely want to plan for that, and I've worked that way as well. And sometimes it's literally, okay, I have an hour before I have to get my kid from school, before another client comes, before I have to get dinner going or whatever. Let's let's do something. And, you know, I grab my dolls and I start playing. Yep.
Do they take the dolls out of the studio? Do they get to go on the road? Do they get to go in the park or the zoo? Or do the dolls stay
They
at
haven't
home?
been to the zoo in a while.
Okay.
No, they still stay local around the studio area or in a building. So they travel somewhat around the building itself.
That's great. No,
That I know of.
Yeah, I collect action figures. So
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, and some people know that I have action figure tattooed on my leg. So we'll.
Okay.
You think I'm kidding, but I'm not. So it's gonna shtick. But so we talk about photography, and also you mentioned that you're a mom.
Yes.
And you have, what do you have? 2 sons?
I have 2 beautiful sons. I have a 7-year-old and a 5-month-old. So I'm a busy girl.
And we talked a little bit off the air where how, and I think it's interest to some of the parents out there, especially parents with starting their families and having young kids and stuff. How do you balance the career, the art, the kids? Probably the kids come first, so the kids' career and art, spouse, you know, sleep. I mean,
That's a good one.
Yeah.
You just don't. It's a very loaded question. I think there's no one answer to it. It's definitely a challenge.
Right.
I know I'm not the only one in this position, though. There's so many working parents out there who are balancing this crazy life that we have going on. And it's just, you know, like I said, you do things when you have that free time. So if my baby is taking a nap for 20 minutes or longer, hopefully,
Right.
I'll go and answer emails. You know, when everybody's asleep, that's when I do my editing until I fall asleep in front of the computer and have to wake up in an hour.
Wow.
It's definitely, you know, it's definitely a challenge, but eventually somehow you get into the crazy rhythm.
Right.
And you just work around it, you know. And I work on weekends a lot, or I try to schedule things at nights or at times when I know I can have some babysitting happen. So there's a lot going on on daily basis.
Every day is a challenge.
To balance, absolutely.
I'm just curious because I have a sister who's about the same age difference than me as your sons.
Oh, yeah.
So what was the reaction of the older son when the newer son, the younger son came along? Was he, hey, who's this guy? Or was he happy?
Oh, no,
or?
he was very happy.
Yeah.
We're blessed. He's a really, really good boy, and he was so happy he couldn't wait. So yeah, and you know, he tries to help here and there when he can. I mean, when I make him.
Right.
You know, Mom has to go to the bathroom, watch the baby for 2 minutes.
Right.
So, you know, you make it work.
That's cool. Do you take, have you used your kids as subject matter for your own photography?
They're definitely subject matter, not for my, just for me and my
Right.
family, you know.
Yeah.
Although I have to say my oldest one is now seeing what I'm doing, and now he's trying all these posing and outfits, and he's thinking into going into modeling possibly, and I don't know, we'll see. We did a little photo shoot of him that I still need to edit because obviously that's never a priority.
Right.
Clients come first sometimes.
So you're not going to Sears for the family photos. You're taking care of the better photos at home, I would assume.
Well, of the kids,
Of
but
the
that
kids.
means I'm never in the pictures.
Oh,
So
okay.
eventually I do have to go, not to Sears, but I
Right.
have to get my other photographer friends to help out with a family picture situation.
Yeah.
And I'll have to do it sooner or later again because it's been a while.
And the kids grow up so fast.
They do.
Yeah. Wow. When we talk about the different styles of photography, and we talked last time about working with actors, but how do you, this is an interesting question, I think, I'm working on the fly here. How do you get the humanity in a photograph that doesn't have people? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. It's an interesting question because sometimes that's exactly what I try to do, is to take an object, in a lot of cases a doll, or you know, or a piece of a doll, I should say sometimes, and it's a challenge for me to have a person do a double take and say, oh, is that, is that a person? Is that real? What's going on in this shot? So
Right.
It's a lot of fun to play around with that idea. And, there's, like I said, there's no formula. It's, when I'm in the zone, I'm just doing my thing and, working and trying to get different shots. And I don't know, hopefully it does translate into something interesting to the viewer later on.
Right.
So, yeah.
My friend Anne Murray has lived in Barcelona and Shanghai, all these places. So I recently hit her up, my friend Anne, for some photographs from her collection for my website.
Uh-huh.
And they're really nice international pictures that she's taken. And one of them was of this pretty profound bridge. I'm not even sure where it was, in Barcelona or somewhere, but the bridge has the lights. And the thing about you talking about photography is like to capture that essence so that the person who's looking at the photograph feels like they're looking at it with their own bare eyes, or even more like they're engaged in it like a piece of art. It is a piece of art, obviously,
Right.
so they're kind of like in the piece of art themselves, not just looking at it.
Yes. It's a challenge that I think any artist is presented with, how to create a piece that is engaging to the viewer and how to get them interested and how to start that dialogue.
Right.
And so I think everybody has their own challenges when it comes to that,
Yeah. And here's a technical question that I'm curious why I haven't even asked it before, but
Sure.
what camera do you like to use? Do you have a few, or do you like to...
I have a few, as any photographer, you have to have backups. So I work with Nikons, and I have a bunch of different lenses and all kinds of gear, kind of for different situations. And there's never enough gear as
Right.
as a photographer. You're always looking at, oh, they got a new camera out now, and they got a new lens out, and you want all of these toys, and but then
Right.
like, wait a minute, hold yourself back.
That's interesting you said that, because my film collaborators, they lovingly call themselves gearheads, and it's always like, what camera we get, and this, that, and I'm lucky that I'm working with these guys and women, because it's cool to have them kind of take care of that, so I can just write the script,
Yeah, yeah.
So that's very cool.
It's a lot, but I also believe that gear is definitely a tool in creation,
Right.
but it's not. It doesn't make the artist. In other words, you could start out with very little and create something really unique, and yet you can have the most expensive, the latest, trendiest gear in the world, and still not make something that speaks to the viewer. Does that
Yes,
make
it does.
sense? So
Yeah, it's the content, it's the creation, not the tool.
right, you have to be able to know your gear and what it's capable of, what you can do with it, and go with it, and not hold yourself back.
Yeah. Is there any photographers or other artists, or even films or other still photography, like an exact photo, that have influenced your style or that you are inspired by?
I find inspiration in so many places. Of course, like I think I mentioned in a previous episode, Aberaldo Morel, who was my teacher in college. He is an amazing artist, and he was probably one of my truest first inspirations in the fine art photography. But then, and of course there's so many different artists and photographers out there. But then I'm also inspired by music, I'm inspired by theater, and I have a lot, I have my parents to thank for it, because I kind of grew up in that environment, in the artistic environment. And so my father directs plays in Russian for the Russian community.
Wow.
And so seeing that as a kid, growing up with that, and he's doing it here now in America, also is a huge inspiration to me to always continue to do something unique and different, not always be stuck, in the 9 to 5. And
Yeah.
so yeah, I don't know if I've answered your question.
I think you
at this
did.
point. Okay.
Well, you took it to an interesting place, which I really like, is the music inspiring the photography? Is there any particular artist, or is it classical, or is it rock and roll, or?
Yeah, I like a little bit of everything. I think when I'm in my zone,
Yeah.
editing or shooting zone, it's definitely more rock.
Sure.
More moody type of music. You know, if I'm shooting a person, I'm creating their portrait, then it's more happier music that I put on for that person to be more comfortable as well, you know. So I think music is so important in everyday life and how it kind of creates different moods for people, and so that's definitely one of the tools for me.
So if you're taking a headshot of, say, me, and so I just want to get a visualization. Do you have like a boombox, a CD player, or a?
Everybody has phones now.
Right.
I can say, hey, what's your favorite music? You know.
Yeah.
And I've had all kinds of requests. So you know.
You just get it up there.
We'll look up the music, and you know, it's so personal because everybody's so different, and
Right.
so hearing the kind of music that makes you happy gives me an insight of what kind of person you are and who you're all about too. So you know, it's.
See, I wouldn't have even thought of that. That's
Yeah.
really cool that you're giving them some background music to make them feel comfortable.
Absolutely.
And you're okay with whatever music they have. If they have Korn or Gore or anything crazy, you're okay.
Oh
with
yeah.
Wow.
I'm fine. Yeah. I like all kinds of music, so you know, I'll probably fall asleep in the classical section, but you know, I haven't had too many requests for that just yet.
Your father, the theater director, what kind of plays that he directed that you saw or even continue to see that you really liked? Just, you know, photography either influenced or not, but was there any specific? I'm just interested as a theater enjoyer myself.
Well, sure. I think, he's not, I also am involved in his theater, so I do some acting.
Oh, okay.
A little bit. So he, you know, he's been doing it for many, many years, and I don't think it's one particular piece. I think it's watching him in a process, and this is not his full-time gig by all means. He's an engineer.
Wow.
He is somebody who does this for the love of art, for the love of theater, and so this is something he does out of his heart, you know, and so that's. Seeing that and seeing the whole process from him coming in and just reading a new script to seeing the final production, to him actually building the set, to setting all the lights, to picking out the music, just everything comes together, you know, and seeing that whole process and all come together with his you know, help and with his vision. It's just amazing, you know.
Yeah, and what's interesting to me is that the theater is such a collaborative medium, as is film. You know, you have all these people coming together. Photography, and my guess would be more like you, and potentially the subject matter, if that's a person. You know, so it's kind of interesting because it's a contrast between the individualized art and the collaborative art.
Well, it's funny, it can be, but a lot of times too, depending on what kind of photography you're doing, it's also collaboration. I am very lucky to have amazing hair and makeup people that I know who really helped me a lot in the process.
Yes.
I know some amazing models who step in and do a great job in front of the camera. Some designers who will produce an outfit that will work with the whole story, and I think collaboration becomes very very real in cases like this if we are to do a photo shoot that's more involved. So you have hair, makeup, you have a designer, you have the model, you have the photographer, you have an assistant.
Wow.
So all of a sudden it's not just one-on-one.
It is a collaborative.
It is a collaboration.
Like a film set. Wow.
Sometimes
I'm glad you caught that. That's good.
It's just a smaller collaboration sometimes. So, but yeah, it's good to know creative people in the business.
Now, do you have any preference or any opinion on? Is there a running debate between 35 millimeter photography versus digital? Is that a debate, or do people just kind of accept that it can go either way? Or?
I think at this point, the digital is so it's so technologically advanced,
Right.
that there really shouldn't be a debate. I think it becomes a matter of artistic preferences.
Okay.
So whether or not people want to pick up the film camera again and say, I just want to go in my artistic direction and use the film, and that's going to be my my outlet. You know, this
Right.
is how I'm going to express myself. So I think it becomes a choice in that sense, as opposed to what's better. There's, you know, it all depends on the photographer.
Yes.
That's what it comes down to, on the artist. So.
Yeah, I'm just curious about the current state of that thing.
Oh,
because-
digital is so improved. When I first started with the whole digital world, I mean,
Yeah.
I remember buying a 1 gig card for $300 for my camera.
Right.
I mean, things have changed a little
Right,
bit, right?
right.
So, and they're just getting better and better, and the quality of the image is amazing. So, comparing that to 35 probably wouldn't be too much of a comparison, unless you're looking for a very specific artistic effect.
Okay.
Would be my answer.
Do you subscribe to any of the magazines? Like, when I haven't gotten these in a while, but there are some pretty established, periodicals, magazines for photographers. Do you get any of those or not?
Yeah, I get some. I'm a member of Professional Photographer Association, PPA, and so I get a few periodicals, PDNs, and Rangefinder, and a few others that I definitely look through and get ideas from or learn something new from. So definitely, yeah.
Have you ever I'm tapping into some stuff in my mind and my memories that I haven't tapped in. Talking with you is great because I remember I used to take photography for pro wrestling matches.
Okay.
And some of this stuff was wild.
Oh my
Because I would
God.
get the press section and I would see things. I saw some pretty intense stuff with these wrestlers and the quick action and the blood, because this was ECW, Extreme Championship Wrestling, was a real bloody outfit, when I was younger. So
Sure.
do you ever do sports photography or not so much? Or?
I don't do sports photography.
Yeah.
I do some wedding photography,
Yep.
which I will consider to be as close to sports photography because things are happening so quickly. There's no redo of the moment.
Right.
And so that's where I draw the comparison.
Okay, I like that.
And so if that answers your question, no sport photography for me, although I did shoot Tom Brady in one of the events lately, and my son was like, "You're the coolest mom ever." So that's as close to sports photography as I get.
Yeah. What event was that, if I can ask? With Brady?
I do work a lot of work for LE Fund.
Okay.
And so I shoot a lot of their events, and he was one of the surprise guests.
That's a charity?
It is a charity, yes, and they help women who are going through breast cancer.
Oh, that's very important. That's great.
Yeah. So.
Now believe it or not, we've come to the end of another episode.
Wow, that was
We've got
fast.
a couple minutes, but
Sure.
I want to ask you, do you have another mantra for us? The Messier Mantra. Last time we talked about your mom, and she had some great thoughts. Any further thoughts, mantra type of thoughts?
Well, one of the ones, I guess, on my mind lately is, don't put anything till tomorrow that you can do today.
Right.
Type of thing, because you just never know what tomorrow is going to be.
Yeah.
So if you find that minute, if you find that moment, go with it. If you have a friend that you're thinking of that you haven't called in a while, go ahead and make that phone call. If you have some unfinished business, finish it, and I have a lot of unfinished business, but little things, baby steps, one day at a time.
That's great.
So.
And I think it was interesting that you said that as we wrap up, because just to break the fourth wall a little bit, I was in a jam to get a guest on the show, and you came in through our buddy William William, who said, "Hey, Dina would be great." And then I got in touch with you, and you were all for it. Like, hey, I want to get a babysitter. I want to come down to Seekonk, and you did the show.
Yeah.
So that's cool. That's you living the advice that you just gave myself and the audience.
I try to.
That's great. Dina K Photography. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mike, for having me here.
Thank you. It's been great.
Thanks.
We want to thank our guest, Dina, and her wonderful photography conversation, and thank you for watching Messier Mantra. We'll see you next time.